Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have ourselves a busy show today as we have a lot to get into, such as the Rams and the Chargers. They finally got some wins under their belts. The Chargers have quite the road as they play the Giants at home and then the Chiefs next Thursday, and then the Rams are heading down to the Cactus State to take on the Cardinals. Can both teams pull off some wins? And the Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks, continue their winning ways. Is this for real? Can they actually make the playoffs? Let's hope so. And USC men's hoops is undefeated as they're doing so much better than their football counterparts as pulled off a big win over Washington State. Does USC have that it factor? We'll have to wait and see. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you very much for tuning in on this beautiful Friday afternoon. It is great to be back on for another week of some SoCal Supreme Sports action. And I'm here to give you your daily dose of Southern California sports. So without any further delay, let's get on into the SoCal sports action. But first, we have a couple words from our sponsors. The first sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Southern California Warriors Semi-Pro Football Team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern, then California, then Warriors. The second sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crime such as identity theft or other illegal activity. Unfortunately, they do not have Twitter or Instagram, but they do have Facebook. As long as you type in the word background, then check, then international, then put a little dash, then put BCI. And they also have their website, www.bcint.com. So thank you to those two sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And you can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. And they're also on the Book of Faces, as long as you type in the word IE and the word sports and then radio. And for the last 7.5 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized personnel to building tailor-made shows to dedicating themselves to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, iSports Radio has been by the fans for the fans, and with your help, iSports Radio is ready to take the next big step. When you go to their website, iSportsRadio.com, you'll find their Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting off at $5 a month. That donation gets you a shout out from all 27 of our shows, including this one. And higher tiers will include iSports Radio merchandise, access to iSports Radio U, their podcasting university, and you even have a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, or iSports Radio's flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you, everyone, for making iSports Radio and helping iSports Radio continuing to become your direct feed for all that is sports. We also want to give one last shout-out to the Fan of the Month from last month in Turbaned Patriot. He is a fantastic fellow. He is a big Patriots fan, and he's an all-around Boston fan, so I won't judge him too much. I'm kidding. Even though I'm a SoCal guy, I love Turbaned Patriot. He's an amazing all-around great guy, and he's a great judge on 3 and Out. So congratulations to Turban Patriot, and also want to give a shout out to the Patreon supporters Bay Area Raised Apparel and Marcus Los Great, iSports Radio's own Marcus Los Great. So thank you to those two for being the Patreon supporters, and thank you to everyone for helping iSports Radio continuing to be your direct feed for all that sports. Now let's get on into the Southern California sports action. So let's start with the Chargers last week because they played earlier than the Rams did. So the Chargers were able to bounce back after their ugly loss to the Broncos, and they defeated the Cincinnati Bengals on the road 41-22. It was an impressive win for the Chargers, considering they came off of that ugly loss, and they really stink when it comes to playing up east, as we saw against the Baltimore Ravens. So this game was rather weird. The Chargers started off leading 24-0 as they led so in the second quarter. Everything was just going right for the Chargers. They were stopping the run game. They were putting pressure on Joe Burrow. Heck, even Michael Davis caught a improbable interception as the ball went off the hands of Jamar Chase and into the hands of Davis, which was rather impressive. And heck, it even got to the point where the Chargers were running the Philly special, or the LA special, as Keenan Allen threw a 2-point conversion pass to Justin Herbert, which he caught, and it was looking like the Chargers were actually going to cruise to victory. But I haven't seen this story all too well. Chargers build a big lead, team gets a touchdown here and there, team eventually gets a late score, team gets halftime momentum, team starts making their comeback, Chargers eventually lose their lead. Chargers try to resalvage their lead. Other team completes the comeback. Chargers lose. That was kind of the case. The Chargers did allow the Bengals to score 13 unanswered points. And Justin Herbert did throw an interception, which, unfortunately, it wasn't all his fault, though. And I don't think it was the receiver's fault, because he threw the ball to Josh Palmer, and it looked as if Palmer was going to catch that big time. Then, unfortunately, I forget his first name, but his last name's Awuzie. He ripped the ball out of Palmer's hands, and it was an interception. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I didn't even know Awuzie played for the Bengals. I knew he played for the Cowboys at one point, but Awuzie, I like his last name, by the way. Awuzie picked off Justin Herbert, and it was unfortunate. But I also do need to make note that the drive before, Austin Eckler fumbled the ball after he caught a check down pass from Justin Herbert. I think it was third and long, and Eckler was trying to get more yards, and then he fumbled the ball, which was very unfortunate. Fortunately for the Chargers, Justin Herbert prevented a defensive touchdown from occurring as he tackled the ball carrier down to, I think the 22-yard line. Regardless, it was still an amazing play from Justin Herbert. The fact that he was able to catch up to him was quite amazing, especially since Herbert wasn't able to catch up to the likes of Patrick Surtain from 2 weeks ago. So there was that. So eventually the Chargers got the ball to... They eventually forced the Bengals to go 3 and out, and it was another 3rd and long, and Herbert was able to throw it to Eckler. But just like last time, he threw a check down to Eckler, and it looked like Eckler was going to be just short of the first down, and he tried to get more extra yards in his defense, but the ball got knocked loose, and it's like, oh my god. And I didn't know this from Eckler. Apparently he has been handling the big loads when it comes to running the ball and receiving the ball, that he also picked up a couple ankle injuries, but more on that later. So, yeah, Eckler had somewhat of a forgettable day, but you'll see how he kind of made up for it. So, eventually the Bengals scored a touchdown courtesy of Joe Mixon. He just ran in from, I think 7 yards out. And the 2-point conversion, at that point it was 24-22 Chargers, and the 2-point conversion would have tied the game, and eventually, not eventually, the Chargers got called, I think it was either illegal formation, 12 men on the field, and they unfortunately put the Bengals on the 1-yard line, and all the Bengals needed to do was run it in with Joe Mixon, and that was it. Surprisingly, the Chargers were able to stop Joe Mixon short of the goal line, which was very impressive. I think that might have been the turning point. If the Chargers don't stop Joe Mixon, the Bengals have all the momentum on their side. I mean, the Bengals were having momentum at that point when they cut the lead down to 2, but it was just so typical Chargers for them to just have a 20-plus point lead, and then they just blew it all away. And it looked as if the Chargers were just unable to get their offense going because Herbert was getting sacked. There's receivers. Well, they didn't really get a case of the dropsies, but they have been dropping the balls. The receivers weren't getting open. The run game was getting stuffed. All that jazz. And it was at that point I thought the Chargers were going to lose, and it was just frustrating because the defense was having to come back out onto the field, and they were most likely getting gassed. Fortunately for the Bengals, I think it was a couple drives later, they fed the ball to Joe Mixon. I think the ball was near midfield, if not a little past midfield, and Mixon fumbled the ball, which, funny enough, his last fumble came against the Chargers in week number 1 from last year. And Tavon Campbell, who has been replacing Asante Samuel Jr. at cornerback, scooped the ball up and scored off of a 64-yard scoop and score, which that also was another turning point right there. If the Chargers don't get that defensive score, I don't know what they do. So eventually it was 31-22 at that point. Chargers were actually going to go for 2, but I think they got whistled for a false start, and Brandon Staley, the head coach, was miffed about that. So it was not super long, but it was a longer extra point for Dustin Hopkins, who actually missed an extra point but made a field goal, as he was able to kick it through the uprights. And then on the next drive, Joe Burrow and the Bengals were driving down the field rather quickly, and I think they got to the 15-yard line. They got into the red zone, and Joe Burrow was trying to find an open man, but he threw it into the end zone, and it was picked off by Chris Harris Jr., which Chris Harris Jr. obviously hasn't had the best season. He's kind of regressed, but the fact that he got that interception was kind of also crucial. It wasn't a turning point, but at the time, the Chargers were in need of a stop. It was at some point of the game. Eventually, the Chargers were able to add another touchdown as they got Austin Eckler the ball at the 1-yard line, and he just ran it in. Thankfully, he didn't fumble. Eckler eventually salvaged a solid day. Like, obviously this wasn't his best performance, but again, you kind of have to remember that he's been handling the running back one loads quite a lot, as the Chargers do not have a reliable running back two. Justin Jackson is made of glass, and I don't think he can be a reliable running back two. Joshua Kelly, I'm still concerned about with his fumbles, and Larry Roundtree is also a little concernable considering he's only a rookie. And he doesn't have that explosiveness that Eckler has. So for the Chargers, they went up 38, or no, I think they went for 2. I want to say they went for 2. And they got it as the Chargers went up 39 to... No, actually, no, they didn't go for 2. They just kicked the extra point. I'm sorry. I'm doing my math incorrectly. They went up 38 to 22, and at that point, the Bengals just could not get anything going as the Chargers were able to add a late field goal, and eventually they pulled away from the Bengals, which was quite impressive, and they won 41 to 22, which was good. I was very impressed that the Chargers were able to pull out the victory. I just wish they could have done it in a little less stressful fashion. So, good for the Chargers. They are 7-5. They are currently the 5 seed in the playoffs, as the playoff race is getting super tight when it comes to that wild card spot. They're 7-5 along with the Bills and the Bengals, and the Colts are in the hunt. The Raiders are in the hunt, and a few other teams are in the hunt, as the Chargers will be playing their next game on Sunday against the New York Giants at SoFi Stadium. So the Giants have been rather, let's just say, discombobulated. Their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones, is out with a neck injury. Mike Glennon, their backup quarterback, is in concussion protocol, so they may have to turn to the one, the only, Jake Fromm. Yes, the Jake Fromm. Not Jake Fromm from State Farm. But the former Georgia quarterback who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. As we say hello to Brad Buckingham in the chat room, thank you for tuning in. Just wrapping up some Charger football here. So the Chargers could be facing Jake Fromm, and that would be Fromm's first start of his NFL career. First official start. We're not counting preseason. No. So it would be Jake Fromm's first official NFL start, unless, of course, Mike Glennon does get cleared from concussion protocol. So on paper, this looks like an easy win for the Chargers, as the Giants have also had to deal with other injuries to said players such as Saquon Barkley. I think Kenny Golladay is also hurt, and Kadarius Toney, I forget his first name, but K. Toney is also banged up. Like, the Giants have just had a slew of injuries when it came to their team. But my fear for the Chargers is if Saquon Barkley is healthy enough. I imagine Barkley would be healthy enough to play against the Chargers. And if Barkley does play against the Chargers, that could be a problem. I will say this about the Chargers, their run defense has been better. Against Joe Mixon, they limited him, and Mixon was actually second in rushing yards, if I'm not mistaken. So they did a good job in limiting Joe Mixon. Like, Mixon, I think, only had like 50 or 60 rushing yards, and he wasn't that impressive. Yes, he had a touchdown, but it was all about limiting Joe Mixon, which was rather impressive. And like I said, the Chargers did do a good job of limiting Najee Harris as well as Dalvin Cook, even though Cook also had a big game. But if you saw the Steelers-Vikings game, Cook being held to that many yards against the Chargers versus how many yards against the Steelers is very, very eye-opening. So for the Chargers, they just have to watch out for Saquon Barkley. And believe it or not, the Giants' offense has not scored a touchdown since, touchdown from a wide receiver or a running back since week 7. I was rather surprised at that. I was like, no way. And it's crazy when you think about it. Like, the fact that they're just putting up points on the board thanks to field goals is mind-blowing. So, for the Chargers, they really need to stop the run game. Now, I know the Chargers have been banged up in terms of their defense, as Joey Bosa suffered a head injury. He actually didn't play the remainder of the game against the Bengals, but he could have actually came back in. But Brandon Staley, the wise coach that he is, decided to hold him out for purposes of he doesn't want to make it worse, which was smart. Justin Jones was also banged up, and then a few other players were banged up for the Chargers as well. And all in all, Saquon is basically probably their best bet at getting a touchdown in terms of a wide receiver or a running back. Like, I don't know what Jake Fromm will want to do, but he is getting his first start, and the Chargers know all too well about starting quarterbacks or quarterbacks making their first ever start. So we'll have to see what Jake Fromm wants to do with the Giants. Like, on paper, this has Chargers win written all over it, but I get this weird feeling the Chargers are still not going to make it easy. The Giants are mathematically still alive when it comes to the playoff hunt, as they're not dead yet. It's not like the Texans situation where the Texans are eliminated from playoff contention, but this is a game that the Chargers should win by 2 or 3 scores. Like, I really want to see the Chargers actually win convincingly. No more comebacks from other teams. No more playing around with their opponent. No more any of that cute stuff. Like, they gotta score early and often because they're playing the Giants. They're 4-8, and like I said, while they are still in the playoff hunt, they're still pretty far out. Like, they're not as close as the Vikings, Eagles, Panthers, Falcons, and Saints. And those teams aren't even remotely close. So, for the Chargers, they just have to play their game, and they have to protect Burrow at all costs. And Burrow just has to play his game and not make better decisions. He did a pretty good job against the Bengals. Like, other than that one pick and other than a few sacks, Herbert was solid for the most part. Like, he was great. So, for the Chargers to have any chance of winning this game, they have to just play their game, just slow down Saquon Barkley, put pressure on Jake Fromm early and often, and just let everything else put into place. And also the big thing for the Chargers is they cannot afford to look ahead. This Giants game could be a possible trap game. It could be a trap game if the Chargers look too far ahead, because down the road, the Chargers play the Chiefs next Thursday, which that could easily be the game that makes or breaks the Chargers' hopes of winning the AFC West or making the playoffs in general. So for the Chargers, they have to get the job done on Sunday before they could look to Kansas City. And the Chargers have been dealing with other issues on their front as well, as Keenan Allen apparently tested positive for COVID, but the thing is, he is vaccinated, so as if he tests negative, then he'll be cleared to practice and basically get back on the field. Brad says, Chargers are 10-point favorites. Is it that big of a trap? Well, for the Chargers, it's never really easy. And the Chargers' run defense is the second worst in the NFL. Yes, second worst behind the Houston Texans. So, and we all saw what happened against the Bengals. They had a 24-point lead, and they almost blew it up, which would have been disastrous. So, and it's so easy to look that far ahead because it's a short week for the Chargers after they play the Giants. So, we'll have to see what happens with the Chargers. But I really think they can definitely win by 2 or 3 scores. Like, it's the Giants, for goodness sake. I don't think the Chargers are going to be that intimidated by them. But if the Chargers play down to their competition, then it could be a little hairy. But for the Chargers in their front, back to Keenan Allen, there's a good chance Keenan Allen will be able to play on Sunday if he continues to test negative on back-to-back days. So there's that. Mike Williams was also a concern about not playing because he came into close contact with Keenan Allen, and same with Chris Harris Jr., as Mike Williams has been testing negative. Unfortunately, Mike Williams is not vaccinated, but for Williams, he has tested negative on back-to-back days, and it looks like he is going to be able to play along with Chris Harris Jr., so we're just waiting to get the word from Keenan Allen, as we're hoping he's able to play for this Sunday. So looking at the Chargers and their injury report, it also looks like the Chargers will be getting Asante Samuel Jr. back, which, well, that's great news right there, because he's their corner and he's had 2 concussions, and the fact that he has making his way back in quite a good amount of time has been quite phenomenal. Looking at the Chargers injury report, Austin Eckler has been limited this past week with an ankle injury. Remember when I said that he's been having heavy loads because he's running back 1 and the Chargers don't have a reliable running back 2? Well, there's your answer. He has suffered a minor dinged up ankle, so there's that. Matt Filer will be back because he missed last week, and he has practiced in full on both Thursday and Tuesday. Justin Jones was limited yesterday, but did not practice Wednesday. Linval Joseph was limited the past 2 days, but he could be back. Corey Linsley was a limited participant Wednesday, but he practiced in full Thursday. And Asante Samuel Jr., like I said, was limited both Thursday and Wednesday. So depending on what his status looks like today, depends on if the Chargers can or if they can have those players back against the Giants. So I think it's looking promising for the Chargers. I want to say the Chargers will win by a lot, but I think this could be the defense's time to shine. I have the Chargers winning, let's go 31-14. That sounds like a reasonable score. I think the Giants will get a couple of touchdowns. They need to at least get one from Saquon. Like, if they don't get a touchdown from Saquon, then the Giants are misusing him. So, and this is a crucial game for the Chargers because, like I said, that playoff race is so tightening up. And this is probably one of those gimme games for the Chargers. They have a pretty favorable schedule as, like I said, the Giants are this Sunday for the Chargers, and then next Thursday, the Chargers are at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Then the following Sunday, the Chargers are hitting the road to the Lone Star State to take on the Houston Texans. I just got word that Tyrod Taylor won't be playing for the Texans going forward, as I think he got another injury. So starting at quarterback for the Texans is General Davis Mills, part of a not-so-balanced breakfast. I needed to get that joke out there. So then the following Sunday after the Texans, the Chargers return home to play the Broncos, which I think the Chargers can win that one. And then the Chargers finish up the season on the road against the Raiders. So on paper, the Chargers could go 4-1. They also could go 5-0, but I think 4-1, if not 3-2, looks about right. Like, I think they win this week. They'll definitely beat the Texans, and I think they avenge that loss to whatchamacallit. They'll at least beat the Broncos or Raiders. Brad actually says that Davis Mills got Tyrod benched. Okay, so Tyrod Taylor is now benched for General Davis Mills. So, and yeah, I feel for Taylor. He can't catch a break, and at least he was able to start a few games for the Texans, as he actually helped lead them to victories. So Yeah, I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor. It would have been great to see Tyrod face his old team, but unfortunately, that's just how it is. And last weekend was such a bad weekend for Taylor, so there's that right there for Mr. Teran Taylor. And that's pretty much going to do it for the Chargers. I really hope they can get the dub. They should be able to. I don't think there's anything to fear other than Saquon, and even he's questionable with an ankle injury. So we'll see what happens with the Giants-Chargers. So jumping to the other side of the NFL aspect in terms of Southern California, the Rams finally, hence the word finally, got back to the winning side of things as they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 37-7, which either way it was still a big win for the Rams, and this was no surprise. Like, whoop-de-doo, you freaking beat the Jaguars. What do you want, a cookie? So, yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that the Rams were going to win. Yeah, 37-7. So that's the good news that the Rams finally got their 3-game losing streak out of the attic. That's the good news. The bad news is you look at the Rams' schedule, or first let's look at their record. You look at the Rams' record. It's a nice and beautiful 8-4. 2 out of those 8 wins are against teams with winning records. Every other win has been against a bottom feeder. And this is no offense to the Seahawks, Brad. I'm sorry to say that, but every win has not been overly impressive, except for the Bucks and Colts. So those are the only 2 impressive wins. But the Bears against Andy Dalton and the inept play calling from Matt Nagy, not that impressive. The Rams against the Seahawks, which in the second half, in a close game, Russell Wilson gets hurt, not too impressive. And Brad says, you wouldn't read much into a Jags win. A Geno Smith-led Seahawks did almost the same thing to them. Facts. I definitely think that there's no big victory for beating the Jaguars. It's like, congratulations. You got your gimme game out of the way. And back to the Rams' win-loss record. The Rams also beat the Giants. Not that impressive. The Rams barely beat the Lions. Definitely not that impressive. The Rams beat the Texans. That 38-22 score is pretty misguiding because most of those points were scored in garbage time for the Texans. Not that impressive. And then beating the Jaguars, not that impressive. So there's that right there in terms of the Rams. In terms of the Rams' wins. Now for their losses consist of the loss to Arizona, best team in the league. The Titans, one of the best teams in the AFC. The 49ers, which is a playoff hopeful in the NFC. And then the Packers, which is one of the best teams in the NFC. Other than that, that basically screams the Rams cannot beat I wouldn't say legit contender, but a true contender. They did beat the Bucks, which was impressive, but other than that, they haven't really proven themselves. So looking at the Rams' schedule going forward, it's actually a brutal schedule as they have 5 games that are not really guaranteed victories. So, and it starts on Monday when the Rams hit the road to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. That's a primetime game. That's going to be a tough one just because Kyler Murray's back and DeAndre Hopkins is back. I think Chase Edmonds is coming back. And when it comes to primetime games this year, the Rams are the exact opposite of the Chargers. The Rams are pretty garbage in primetime games. And we are not counting Week 1. No. I refuse to count Week 1 as a good primetime win. No. No one's going to convince me to count that. The Rams have been pretty bad in primetime games, as I know they also beat the Seahawks, but their most recent primetime games, they haven't had much success. They lost to the Titans that didn't have Derrick Henry. They got dominated against the 49ers, who hadn't even won at home since last year. So, am I really convinced that the Rams could beat the Cardinals on Monday Night Football? I don't know. This one's rather tough. So, yeah, the Rams have the Cardinals this week. Next week, they have the Seahawks. That might be their most guaranteed victory, but I can't even guarantee that because the Seahawks are still in contention, and you never know what Russell Wilson has up his sleeve, along with Pete Carroll. And then the Rams head down to Minnesota to take on the Vikings the following week. And then the week after, the Rams head up to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And then the Rams return home for its regular season finale against the 49ers, a team that they have not had great success against. But against the Cardinals this week, I don't know if I can pick the Rams this week. I think the Rams have struggled quite a bit against the stiffest competition, other than the Bucs and the Colts. But it's tough to really pick the Rams this week. I don't know if I can. I don't think I have the cojones to, just because the Cardinals are, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Cardinals are actually a legit team this year. And it wouldn't shock me if the Rams lost on the road. So, I hate to pick against the Rams, but I think the Rams lose this one this week. I think the Rams lose in close fashion. I have them losing 34-31. I think it'll be high scoring, and for the Rams' sake, they have to. I think they're going to have to beat. If the Rams do want to beat the Cardinals, they're going to have to win in a shootout. The defense hasn't been overly impressive. I mean, it's been somewhat impressive, but Matt Stafford has just not had that it factor. I mean, yes, he beat the Jaguars, but against the Packers, he got pick sixed. Against the 49ers, he got pick sixed. Against the Titans, he got pick sixed. So that seems to be my biggest flaw for Matt Stafford and the Rams. I don't think Stafford can step up when it truly matters the most. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Stafford's done a great job this season, but he hasn't done the greatest job. He's done good, but he hasn't done great. That's my honest opinion. So I think for me, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the Rams to win this one. But again, if I'm wrong, I will eat crow and say on the record that I was totally incorrect. But if the Rams do want to have any chance of winning the NFC West or securing a home playoff game, they're going to need to beat the Cardinals. And that could be crucial because if the Cardinals do win, Rams are now would be 3 games back of the Cardinals in terms of the NFC West. And then this week, the 49ers, I guess I should make note that the 49ers play the Bengals, which I think they can win that one. I know they're giving up a lot of passing yards to certain quarterbacks, but it's doable. And then the Seahawks play the Texans, which that shouldn't be too difficult, honestly. So for the Rams, they are clinging onto that top playoff or top wildcard spot, but they need to have bigger ambitions, and they definitely need to play better because if they keep playing like they've been playing, they're not going to go far. I'm just going to say that right now. I could see the Rams beating the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are too night and day when it comes to some of their games. Night being not so good and dim, while day being bright, sunny, and clear and seeable. So I think the Rams could beat the Cowboys. Now against the Packers, that could also be a problem, especially at Lambeau Field. At Tampa could also be pretty tough just because you saw what happened with the Saints last year against the Bucs. They won both regular season meetings. They eventually lost to Brady and the Bucs in the divisional round. So there's that. So for the Rams, this is their big test to try to prove themselves as a legit contender. Because everyone is saying the Rams are a legit Super Bowl contender. I think at this point they should be considered a dark horse. Not because of their record or not because of their current place in the NFC, but because there's so much legit competition. I think they have the potential to make a Super Bowl run, but at this point, they're going to need to have a lot go for them, and they're going to actually have to have the urgency to beat some of these supreme teams. Because beating sub-500 teams isn't going to really get you anywhere. And I also should make note that while the Vikings are 6-7, so a lot of their games have been close. And as a Chargers fan, I know how it feels to be locked in close games and cheering for your team and not hoping they don't screw up. So for the Rams, I have them losing in close fashion, but if anything, it's a reasonable loss. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams lost by 1 score, but I will also say this, if the Rams lose by 3 scores or more, heaven forbid, there's no way I can defend this. There's no way I can defend them. I can't defend them if they lose by 3 scores. Like, to lose to 3 scores against a legit team like the Cardinals is one thing, but to do it against the 49ers is another. But if the Rams want to be taken seriously, and if the Rams want to be considered actual true contenders, they have to play Arizona competitive. Because prior to this year, the Rams had owned the Cardinals under Sean McVay. So the fact that this year is a completely different story means many things. It means that the Cardinals have started to figure out the Rams, or maybe the Rams they just don't have that winning formula against the Cardinals. So we'll see what happens. But I have the Rams losing, but don't worry, Rams fans. You could dunk on me or say I was wrong if for some reason the Rams do win. So that's going to do it for the NFL portion. Let's jump to some college football, and oh my gosh, I gotta get my axe for this one. San Diego State, how could you do this? How could you do this? You were in the conference championship game. You were coming off of an impressive win over Boise State, and then you laid the biggest egg on the biggest stage of the season. You got trounced by Utah State by the whopping score of 46-13. 46-13. I don't even know how to explain that. You got decimated on your theoretical home field because they played in Carson in Dignity Health Sports Park, or StubHub Center as the diehards like to call it. But San Diego State, how could you lose to a team that had the worst history in terms of the Mountain West Conference? This team hadn't even won a Mountain West Conference going in. And you mean to tell me Utah State looked like Utah Utes? My goodness. I have never seen such offensive ineptitude as bad as that. I almost wanted to puke after seeing that. Like, it got to the point where I stopped paying attention to that game and watched junior college football instead. Because, first of all, that was Southern California, and second of all, it was more exciting, and it was way more exciting than San Diego State versus Utah State. I couldn't believe how bad San Diego State was. They were getting 15-yard penalties up the wazoo. I couldn't believe how offensive ineptitude really hindered that team. They made this guy, Logan Bonner, look like Kurt Warner out there. It literally drove me insane. It's like, I don't get this. It's like, where was this team? Where was the team from Boise State? Where was the team that beat Utah? Where was the team that had impressive victories? And Brad says San Diego State let me down so hard. Yeah, such a bad game. Absolutely horrible. I couldn't believe it. It's like San Diego State appeared out of the talented San Diego State appeared out of nowhere, and then eventually disappeared when it truly mattered, which was very disappointing. I could not believe how the defense did all that it could, but unfortunately they broke. And more importantly, also something else to note, San Diego State special teams were not so special. They muffed a punt, they kept missing field goals, their kicks were getting blocked. It was so frustrating looking at that. I just couldn't believe that. And also, the offense kept fumbling the ball. It's like, one of which was obviously on the muffed punt, but still. Oh, I felt so dirty watching that game. But still, I was just so flabbergasted on how bad San Diego State was. Number 19 ranked team, my foot. I was sick to my stomach. And like I said, I stopped caring for the most part against their game against Utah State as I started to watch the junior college Southern California championship game. And Brad even makes the greatest stat that I was going to make note of. San Diego State was, get this, 1 for 14 on third down. San Diego State was 1 for 14 on third down. Absolutely unacceptable. Utah State at least had 50%. And they were also 2 for 2 on fourth down. So I don't believe what I just saw right there. It was just frustrating. And also, like I said, San Diego State had 120 yards worth of penalties. They had 9 penalties, and it went for 120 yards. And like I said, they had so many 15-yard penalties. I think they had 6, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I had never seen such ineptitude so bad since USC this season. Like, I just could not believe San Diego State laid that big of an egg against Utah State. It was disgusting. It almost looked like I was watching the Chargers play in the divisional round. Because special teams ineptitude, offensive ineptitude, coaching ineptitude, everything ineptitude. Like, if there was a word to describe San Diego State, it was ineptitude. It was just so disgusting. I could not believe it. I was like, ugh. Oh my gosh. So, before I lose my mind on San Diego State, they are still ranked. They're ranked 24th in the final AP poll. And they will be going bowling, which is great. So, San Diego State will be playing UTSA, a team that won its Conference USA championship for the first time in its team's history. And they will be playing in the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl, which is awesome. So, for San Diego State, I don't know how to put this. Like, I wish UTSA was still undefeated. I can't believe they lost to North Texas, a.k.a. the Mean Green. So, for San Diego State, I hope they can keep up with UTSA. I have not seen a whole lot of UTSA, and the bowl game will be on the 21st, so I'll get into that game next week. I'll preview that game for next week, and hopefully San Diego State does not disappoint us too much. Like, we'll see what happens, though. So, we'll see if San Diego State can not break my heart again. So, that's that for San Diego State. All in all, I was disappointed, and they had a great opportunity to assert themselves, and they blew it, as Dr. Phil would say. So jumping on over to the Pac-12 and the disappointing season of USC, they closed out the season losing to Cal 24-14 in the most least worthy game ever. I would have even not been surprised if Long Beach Poly and Sarah from Gardena had more views and higher ratings than USC and Cal. I did not even see the point of these two teams playing one another. Just because Cal wasn't going bowling, USC wasn't going bowling, there was no point of it. So USC ends its tragic season 4-8, which at least they have Lincoln Riley for next season, so they better hope they can get their you-know-what together, because if they don't, then they're never going to be the top dog of the Pac-12 again. And I do gotta give a shout-out to Utah for defeating Oregon. I'm sorry, Brad, as Utah became only the second team from the Pac-12 South to defeat a Pac-12 North team in the Pac-12 championship game. So, congratulations, Utah, on your victory, as that team has quite a bit of Southern California product on there. Back to USC, so yeah, it was just a disappointing loss to Cal. I could not believe it. It's any wonder that this game got moved to 8 p.m. Like, it was absolutely bad. And USC did start Jackson Dart, but it just wasn't enough. Like, it really, really, really wasn't enough. So, Brad says the Ducks are dead, which, yeah, I feel bad for Oregon, kinda. So, well, at least they're going bowling. I can't say the same for USC though. So, ta-ta USC until next season. So as for UCLA, they will be going bowling as well, as they will be playing NC State in the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, as that game will be played at not Qualcomm, Petco Park, which I'm surprised they're actually that's cool that they're playing at Petco Park, and I kind of forgot where San Diego State was playing at. But back, I'll get back to them in a little bit. But UCLA, NC State will be playing at Petco Park in San Diego, hence the name being called the San Diego County Credit Union Bowl. They play the 18th ranked NC State. It's going to be rather an interesting matchup right there. I won't get into it this week. I'll probably get into it a week before the two teams play. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the Bruins can do, and I hope they can continue their impressive season, as they have been getting rumors, and, well, not rumors, but Chip Kelly, their current head coach, has talked to Oregon about filling their coaching void, as Mario Cristobal has he got recently hired as the University of Miami football coach. So it's been a whirlwind of a season for both the Ducks and the Bruins and the Trojans, but it is what it is. So back to San Diego State. San Diego State will be playing their game at the Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas, which I guess makes sense. So there's that. But now back to UCLA. It would be rather interesting to see Chip Kelly go back to Oregon, just because Chip Kelly did actually coach at Oregon. And the fact that he had some success there makes me wonder why Oregon kind of let him go in the first place. I understand why, because at the time he was kind of underachieving, but it is what it is. So that's something to keep an watchful eye on, as Chip Kelly has talked to Oregon, or has been interviewed by Oregon. And then Oregon has also interviewed Justin Wilcox is his name, the coach of Cal, as that's a rather interesting interview, but I don't think the Ducks should hire Justin Wilcox, but we'll see. So all I know is that Brady Hoke is most likely safe at San Diego State, unless, of course, something tragic happens. And by tragic, I mean by ways of he gets another job, and then San Diego State has to find a new head coach after Rocky Long stepped down from his tenure. So there's that right there. So that'll do it for some college football. Let's jump on into some NHL, and then we'll take ourselves a little breaky break, as the Anaheim Ducks continue to impress. They beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 2-1 in a shootout, which was awesome. The big headline, however, for the Ducks was on Tuesday when they beat the Buffalo Sabres 2-0. They probably, and arguably and debatably, had the goal of the year, as one of their players was able to flip the puck and toss it in back of the net to the front, and then one of the other Ducks players scored on it. Like, you'd have to basically see the video to understand what I'm trying to say, as it was rather impressive. Like, I was just mind blown at that. So, whew, Nelly, that like, it was Trevor Zegras who had the circus assist, as it was quite phenomenal. I was just mind blown at the goal. I had to see this to believe this, and I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. So good stuff for the Ducks, and hopefully the Ducks can continue this great gameplay. So I haven't been fully paying attention to hockey, but I have been seeing the Ducks post their solid victories. So Ricard Raquel fed it to Sonny Milano on that goal, and Raquel was just mind blown at that. He was like, "Whoa! I actually got this assist," and it just went viral. And eventually, the Ducks beat the Buffalo Sabres 2-0. And I thought Buffalo was better, but I guess I'm sadly mistaken. So good for the Ducks, as looking back on their week, they lost on Monday to the Washington Capitals 4-3 in a shootout, and they also lost last Friday on my birthday to the Calgary Flames 4-3 in a shootout. So the Ducks have been at least they've been getting points. I'll give the Ducks that. They're getting points, and they're losing in unfortunate fashion, but at the very least they're competitive. They're so much better than last year. My hope for the Ducks is, I hope they can continue this. They're 1 point back of the Calgary Flames, which, oh my goodness, that would be quite the turnaround. As the Ducks have they can finally say they have a solid team. And I really hope they can turn this thing fully around. And hopefully they don't lose grip of the Pacific League, or the Pacific Division within their grasp, because they're 3 points ahead of Edmonton and 5 points ahead of the Vegas Golden Knights. Like I said, there's only 3 games back of Calgary. They could have used that Calgary win, because then they would be ahead of the Flames and ahead of the Pacific Division. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Ducks going forward, as the Ducks are actually the 3rd best team in the Western Conference. It feels like I'm dreaming, as the Minnesota Wild are on top of the Western Conference, which is absolutely great. So, looking at the Ducks this week, or this week before I go live again, the Ducks hit the road to Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins on Saturday. Then on Sunday, they'll hit the road to St. Louis to take on the Blues. And then the Ducks will be back at home on Wednesday on national TV to take on the Seattle Kraken, which the Ducks won that match earlier in the season, but we'll see what happens the second go-around. And then next Friday, the Ducks will be playing the Arizona Coyotes. So the Penguins have obviously been great, have obviously done well this season. I know the number of games have been absolutely different. The Blues have also been impressive. Like, that could be a team that could give the Ducks a little bit of trouble, especially since they're only 2 games back of the Ducks when it comes to the Western or 3 points back of the Western Conference standings as a whole. And then the Kraken are still trying to find their way, but they're starting to find their footing. And then the Coyotes are the Coyotes. I don't mean to sound that arrogant, but they shouldn't have too much trouble against Arizona, especially since Arizona was almost homeless. My goodness. So as for the counterparts in terms of their Southern California brethren in the Kings, so the Kings, on the other hand, they haven't really been as impressive, but they're still in the hunt, as the Kings recently beat the Dallas Stars yesterday 4-0. And this comes after they got drubbed against the Vancouver Canucks on Monday when they lost 4-0. And then on Sunday, the Kings beat the Edmonton Oilers 5-1, as they were coming off of a 3-2 loss the previous week against the Calgary Flames, which beat them 3-2. So currently the Kings in the Pacific Division stand at 26 points. They have an 11-win, 10-loss, and 4 overtime loss record, as they have won 1 in a row, and their goal differential is +1, which is cool, except not really. So looking at the Kings' schedule for this week before we come on again, the Kings will be at home against the Minnesota Wild on Saturday. Then Tuesday, the Kings will be heading down to Titletown, Tampa Bay, to take on the Lightning. Then Thursday, the Kings will stay down south to take on the Carolina Panthers. Oh, I'm sorry, not the Carolina Panthers, the Florida Panthers. My apologies. Then on Saturday, next Saturday, they will be playing the Carolina Hurricanes. I got the Panthers and the Hurricanes mixed up. So there's that right there for the Kings right there. It's quite the gauntlet, as they're playing the Wild, which leads the West, the reigning champion Lightning, the Panthers, which have looked rather impressive, and I think the best team in the league, the Hurricanes. So this is quite the tough stretch for the Kings. And then also next Sunday, the Kings head up to the nation's capital to take on Washington. Like, they're not going to get a breather till they face the Coyotes, because after they face the Capitals, they play the Oilers the following Wednesday on national TV, and then they play the Golden Knights the following Thursday. So, my good golly gracious, this is going to be a tough stretch for the Kings. But this is the Kings' chance to prove themselves that they are also improving. So we shall see what happens to the Kings going forward. So that is going to do it for some hockey talk. We will take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we'll have some NBA talk, some NCAA men's basketball talk, and we'll also have the Dum Dum of the Week award. So you are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Teran Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a
a fan of thunderous spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
What is going on, everybody? This is Ben Matello, the host of the Yinza Report, right here on IE Sports Radio. I'm bringing you the latest in the Steel City, the City of Champions, from the Steelers, the Penguins, the Pirates, as well as the college game with both Penn State and Pitt. You could join me every Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, where I'll be talking about everything from the Steel City, the City of Champions, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the second half of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You can check out all of those amazing shows that you just heard on those playbacks or commercials on several different streaming platforms such as Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, YouTube, where all or most of our shows are archived, and some of our shows are even on iHeartRadio, as they are 7 out of 27 of our shows are on iHeartRadio, which, for those of you that didn't know that, there's your Snapple fun fact. So, now let's jump on into the second half of the show. Let's talk some NBA, and this is something I still dread, and it's the Lakers. Alright, so the Lakers, just when I thought they were back to being them, they unfortunately go back to being their bad selves. Just when I thought the Lakers were turning the corner, they wind up embarrassing themselves. So last Friday on my birthday, they wound up losing to the Clippers of all teams, 119 to 115. So it was a high-scoring affair, and this was a Lakers home game, and the Lakers fell short, which was unfortunate, but Luke Kennard hit a big three-pointer, so good job to Luke Kennard. Worst part was for the Lakers was that Paul George wasn't the one that did the damage, as Marcus Morris was the one that led him in points with 21, as he hit 6 3-pointers. Jiminy Christmas, what are you doing on the perimeter, Lakers? They hit 16 threes and shot 45%, while the Lakers only made 12 threes and shot 36%. So round one of Lakers versus Clippers went to the Clippers, and like I said last week, the Clippers kind of needed that. The Clippers needed that because they had lost 3 in a row, while the Lakers had won 2 in a row. So that's one way to bounce back if you're the Clippers, but for the Lakers aspect of it, they kind of went 1 step forward and 10 steps back. Fortunately for the Lakers, they bounced back in a big way as they beat their longtime rival, the Boston Celtics, 117-102, which was downright impressive. They gave them a beatdown of that, and that might have been the Lakers' biggest win of its early season. I know they've only played 25 games at that point, but it was huge. Like, I did not know the Lakers had that in them. I knew the Celtics were also struggling at times, but they just were not. I didn't think they'd beat the Celtics by that much. Like, good God, Lakers, where was that been? And then the Lakers got slapped back to reality as they lost to the Grizzlies, 108-95. Why is that a bad thing, dare you ask? Well, for starters, the Grizzlies did not have Ja Morant, who is out indefinitely with, I think, a knee injury. He's not out for the season, but he's out for, I think, 2 to 3 months. Regardless, it was not a good win for the Lakers. Not a good loss for the Lakers. Like, why Lakers? Why'd you have to lose to a shorthanded Grizzlies team? So, Jaren Jackson Jr. led the way with 25 points, and he shot 50% from the field, which was quite impressive. Like, the Lakers were doing good in the first quarter, and then they stopped doing good, as I think turnovers were what hurt the Lakers, as they had 22 turnovers. Good Lord Almighty. So, all in all for the Lakers, they have to learn to play a full 4 quarters, and they have to limit the turnovers. Like, the Grizzlies didn't even shoot the ball that great, but they did enough to win the game, and it doesn't help that the Lakers had 9 more turnovers than the Grizzlies. Like, it just doesn't. So they really have to clean up the turnovers and clean up the gameplay. And I've been hearing that Frank Vogel could be on the hot seat, but I don't think he should be. I don't think it's his fault that the Lakers are struggling. Like, I think the fault is kind of the players, just because they're not meshing well to start. Some of the players are injured, and more importantly, that they're old. Like, I don't think Vogel should be fired. I think Vogel should keep his job, and it would just cause another distraction for the Lakers if they canned Frank Vogel. And isn't Frank Vogel like only in his 3rd year as Lakers coach? Because the first year the Lakers had with Vogel, they won the bubble championship. Then the next year the Lakers made the playoffs, but then lost to the Phoenix Suns. We're really going to can Frank Vogel after 3 years? Like, it's not his fault. Like, and also, who's the Lakers head coach going to be? Like, come on now. Think about it, Lakers fans. Is it going to be David Fizdale as head coach? Like, I mean, the Lakers were hoping to go after him, but Fizdale chose the Knicks, and then he eventually got let go, and I think he went to the Suns coaching staff, and then he eventually went over and found his way to the Lakers coaching staff. So, and then also the Lakers didn't have Jason Kidd, who I think is coaching again. I think he coaches the Mavericks. No, that's Rick Carlisle. Or no, I don't think that Rick Carlisle coaches the Mavs. I think Jason Kidd coaches the Dallas Mavericks, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that, but I think Jason Kidd is the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. And yes, he is the head coach of the Suns, because fittingly enough, Jay Kidd won a NBA championship with the Mavericks. And I say he was the head coach of the Suns, he's the head coach of the Mavericks, and he won a championship with the Dallas Mavericks. So, back to the Lakers, however. So the Lakers tonight, they'll be heading back to the court to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. While the Thunder on paper while this does look like a matchup the Lakers will win, you got to remember the Lakers are 0-2 against the Thunder, and it's on the road. So Lakers don't even get a short time to rest. But I guess there's no rest for the wicked, but it is what it is. Like, this will be the Lakers' third game in 4 nights. So at least the Lakers will get a guaranteed time to rest and time to travel back home when they play the Magic on Sunday. Now, I could see the Lakers winning that one too, but it's the Lakers. They never make things easy. And like I think I told you all the last time I was on this show, or the last time I did this show, was that I have a friend who is a huge diehard Lakers fan, but he is not a fan of this year's team. He's not a LeBron fan. He's not a Carmelo fan. He's certainly not a Russell Westbrook fan. And he just doesn't like how the Lakers don't play hard every night, and how the Lakers are just turning the ball over left and right, and also that they're all old. And I get that, and then he does also like that they're getting banged up every now and then. So, yeah, I feel for my friend who is a Lakers fan, but it is what it is. Like, I can only hope to be optimistic about the Lakers going forward. Like, I want to see the Lakers do good, but it's so tough to believe in the Lakers when they keep losing to subpar teams or shorthanded teams. Like, it just doesn't make sense, man. How do you go from 2-game winning streak to narrowly losing to the Clippers without Kawhi, to trouncing the Celtics, to losing to the shorthanded Grizzlies? Like, you got to beat the Thunder tonight. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Otherwise, this frustrating season will continue to get frustrating because the Thunder are projected to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And this is definitely a rebuilding season for the Thunder. So I don't want to hear any excuses. No more excuses for the Lakers. They have to win tonight. Like, the Thunder are the third worst team in the conference. And they're the fourth worst team in the NBA, as that honor belongs to the Pistons still. So all in all for the Lakers, please get some wins going forward. As next Wednesday, the Lakers take on the Dallas Mavericks on national TV. As Bobby Cash pops in the chat, he says 2023 will be 40 years since the 76ers last won a title. You're lucky to have the Lakers. That's true. I can't argue with that aspect. So I can't really argue with that. So I should be lucky to have the Lakers and thankful to have the Lakers. It's just that it's just been a tough stretch, considering they've had a bunch of players get hurt and they've lost to subpar teams. But all in all, I'm still optimistic on the Lakers. Like, all I could just do is just be optimistic and hope the Lakers can actually turn it around. Because I still have faith in them, and I still think they can make the playoffs. But going deep, especially if they don't remain healthy, is another question. And then I'm also hearing rumors that they could be trading Anthony Davis. It's like, why? Then if the Lakers trade Anthony Davis, they better get a big haul for it, because they traded so much to get Anthony Davis. They traded the 4th overall pick. They traded Lonzo Ball. They traded Josh Hart. And I think they traded a few other players as well to get Anthony Davis. And he eventually delivered a ring or a championship. It's like, what do you all want the Lakers to do? It's like, you want them to get a superstar, they got to give up a lot. Now, if you want them to get rid of their superstar, they better get a lot. Otherwise they keep Anthony Davis and they have to boost his attrition. Alright, so next Friday, when we will be going back live again, the Lakers will be hitting the road to Minneapolis to take on the Timberwolves. So that's basically the Lakers schedule from now until this show goes live again. So those are your 4 games for the Lakers. And in the grand scheme of things, they're 5th in the Western Conference, which isn't bad. Or, I'm sorry, they're 6th in the Western Conference behind the Clippers, which is in 5th place. And then the Warriors are still the best team in the Western Conference, which makes me sad face. But for the Lakers, they're still in it. And with how the Western Conference is pretty much a whack-a-mole box, any of these teams can go up and down. Like, looking at it, the Lakers aren't too far off from the Jazz's record, even though the Grizzlies' record. It's just that losing that game came at an inconvenient time because Lakers could have moved up in the Western Conference standings, but instead they moved down. So, tough tamale. So that's pretty much that for the Lakers. I will say this about LeBron James. He did get his 100th career triple-double, which is happy face, but I think deep down LeBron wants a win. So, no, Bobby. Davis for Simmons, then LeBron can play with his little nephew Ben. Please, no. That would be the worst trade ever. Ben Simmons for Anthony Davis. Oh my God. Like, I'm already my skin is already clammy thinking about that. Just please no. So, anyway, for the Clippers now, before I lose my mind at that option, the Clippers are actually starting to get their you-know-what together as, like I said, last Friday they beat the Lakers. Hooray! And then they followed that up by losing to the Kings on Saturday, which is not fun. Like, what are you doing, Clippers? Why are you losing to NoCal? Like, come on. But as of recent, the Clippers have been winning their games. On Monday, they defeated the Portland Trailblazers 102-90, even though Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are out. And feel better, CJ McCollum. I hope it's not anything serious. So, yeah, poor guy has a punctured lung. I hope it's not anything serious. And then on Wednesday, the Clippers followed up the Lakers' act by beating the Celtics 114-111, which was rather impressive. So good for the Clippers. They are starting to get their you-know-what together. So looking ahead to the Clippers' schedule by the time this show goes live again, the Clippers will stay at Staples Center to take on the Orlando Magic on Saturday. And then on Monday, the Clippers have a big showdown against the Phoenix Suns, the team that beat them in the playoffs last year. And then on Wednesday, the Clippers have a big-time showdown against the Utah Jazz, a team that they beat in the playoffs last year, on Wednesday. And then next Saturday, the Clippers will be heading up to Oklahoma City or the Panhandle State to take on the Thunder. So that's pretty much the Clippers schedule, and I know next Saturday I won't be going live. I'll be going live on Friday, most likely. If not, I'll keep you all posted, but that's pretty much going to be that right there for the Clippers. I just felt the need to get that out of the way. So that's going to do it for the NBA. Let's jump on into some NCAA men's and women's basketball. So for NCAA men's basketball, USC is still undefeated, which is awesome sauce right there. And it's actually a miracle that the Trojans are still undefeated because they actually had a really tough game on Saturday against Washington State. And I'm glad they actually won, unlike their freaking football team, as USC narrowly escaped against Washington State 63-61 in their second Pac-12 game. It was actually a road game, and Washington State is really good, so there was no surprise that USC was going to have some trouble. So good for the Trojans. They moved to 2-0 in Pac-12 play, and they were able to pick up a big road win. And then also USC defeated Eastern Kentucky 80-68 this past Tuesday. So that's good stuff for USC. So the Trojans, on the other hand, will be having themselves they'll continue their 3-game homestand. They just beat Eastern Kentucky, and then this Sunday they'll be taking on Long Beach State, which is my alma mater. If I didn't have to watch the Chargers, I'd totally go to that game, even though it's kind of tough for me to get to the Galen Center because buses and whatnot. And then USC this upcoming Wednesday will play UC Irvine, so it's a bit of a SoCal a SoCal sit-down at home. So there's that. And then next Saturday, USC will be playing in the Jerry Colangelo Classic as they'll be taking on Georgia Tech. So it's next Saturday, not this Saturday, which is tomorrow. Next Saturday. So USC will play Georgia Tech. So that should be fun. And I'm hoping USC can keep it going. I mean, they have potential. They're number 16 in the nation. So it all depends on if they can keep it together. Because USC is actually 1 out of 8 teams that still remains undefeated. The others are San Francisco, Arizona. I know Minnesota isn't undefeated. Purdue isn't undefeated. I actually forgot the other few. But all I can tell you is that USC is 1 out of 8 teams that still remains undefeated, which is absolutely awesome right there. So good for the Trojans. Let's see how far they can keep it up, because looking at their schedule, their next toughest game, I imagine, could be against Oklahoma State, even though I don't think that should be too difficult. Their true test, however, will be against Arizona on Sunday, January 2nd. So we'll see if the Trojans can stay undefeated by that time to take on Arizona. Because I know for a fact Arizona is going to be taking on UCLA a couple nights beforehand. So there's that right there for the Wildcats. So we'll see. And looking at Arizona's schedule, they have actually quite the tough schedule. They face Illinois, California Baptist, not Cal Baptist. It's California Baptist because what I've heard is that California Baptist has to go by either that or CBU, not Cal Baptist. No. Just got to make that known for everybody. Anyway, so Arizona then takes on Tennessee, and then they take on UCLA, and then they take on USC on the last week of the year, of the calendar year, and then the first week of the calendar year. So that's going to be some fun times. And speaking of UCLA is going to have themselves quite a matinee matchup on Saturday, as they'll take on Marquette. Previously, they actually defeated, Colorado to open up Pac-12 play. So that's not too impressive, but it would have been more impressive if that were USC, but that's not surprising. I know UCLA can beat Colorado on any given night. It's USC that has the trouble beating Colorado. And then their game against Washington was actually won by UCLA due to a forfeit, because Washington had a player test positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately, they were unable to partake in that matchup. So UCLA won that by forfeit. So good for UCLA. So, like I said, UCLA has themselves quite an interesting slate here, as this Saturday they will take on Marquette. Marquette is going to be a challenge just because every single year Marquette seems to always have a great team. And while they are not ranked, Marquette could cause problems for UCLA. And then Wednesday, UCLA plays Alabama State. And then next Saturday, UCLA will be playing in the CBS Sports Classic, as they'll be taking on North Carolina, which is going to be very fun. That is going to be entertaining TV right there. And I guess I was going to say, why is that not being played around the world? But I forgot. It's the CBS Sports Classic, not the ESPN Sports Classic or the Fox Sports Classic. It's CBS Sports Classic, so it's obviously going to be on CBS. So that is going to do it for UCLA and some college men's basketball. I guess I'll make note of this. Long Beach State is still undefeated, as they nearly defeated Air Force 50-49. And this Saturday, the Beach, or Long Beach State, will be heading down to Oregon to take on the Ducks of Oregon. So that's going to be tough for Long Beach State to keep their undefeated streak alive. Like, They're currently undefeated. I think they're 8-0 if I'm not mistaken, but against a good team like Oregon, they're going to have to play practically perfect. I mean, Oregon is not the Oregon from last year. Let's get that out of the way. But if Long Beach State wants to beat Oregon, they have to pretty much not turn the ball over a whole lot. And they have to make the most out of their offensive possessions. So there's that. All right, so that is going to do it for college basketball. Before we head out, we have to crown the Dum Dum of the Week award recipients. So the Dum Dum of the Week award is basically an award that I give out on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show for people that do dumb things. And it could be anyone that could get this award. It could be my neighbor's dog, the alley cat, my neighbor, some random dude who does something silly or something like that. Anybody can get the Dum Dum of the Week award, including me. And I actually have 2 Dum Dum of the Week award recipients. But I also have an honorable mention I have to give out as well. So the honorable mention of Dum Dum of the Week is the Toronto Raptors. So long story short, the Toronto Raptors thought they had won the game off of a tip-in that went in. But unfortunately, the clock showed that the player had the ball in his hands when the clocks hit 0, and unfortunately, the basket didn't count, and the Raptors unfortunately lost. And the reason I'm picking the Raptors as honorable mention Dum Dum of the Week award recipient is because the Raptors celebrated like they just won the game, but unfortunately, instant replay said otherwise. So it was unfortunate for the Raptors, but it's not their fault. Like, at the time, it looked as if the ball actually left the player's hands. Well, unfortunately, the clock still showed 0 when the ball was in the player's hands. And it was disappointing because the Raptors all celebrated, and then they realized, oh, wait, the shot doesn't count. So that's my honorary Dum Dum of the Week award recipient. But it's not all their fault. But the first of 2 Dum Dum of the Week award recipients, the first one happened against the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. So last weekend, I think everyone knows this by now, the Detroit Lions finally got their first win of the season by defeating the Minnesota Vikings 29-27 as Jared Goff threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown, the former modern-day Monarch and the former USC standout. Fight on, Amon-Ra. So, good job to the Detroit Lions. But you all are probably thinking, so you're going to give Dum Dum of the Week award to the Vikings just because they lost, right? No, it's not going to the Vikings. But it is going to someone affiliated with the Vikings. So, after the game, Vikings fans were so distraught and so PO'd that they wanted Mike Zimmer fired. Cool. This is how I pretty much felt when Mike McCoy and the Chargers lost to the then winless Cleveland Browns. But that's not where it stops right there for the Vikings and their fans. So the Vikings fans decided to take matters into their own hands, and they decided they must have been so frustrated and so pissed that they went to social media for the wrong reasons. So they obviously were saying fire Zimmer, but what they were doing was absolutely heinous and disgusting. The Vikings fans who were PO'd that the Vikings lost to the Detroit Lions went to social media and they threatened the grandchildren of Mike Zimmer. So this was posted on the Instagram story of the daughter of Mike Zimmer. And she was basically said that she had received threats from Vikings fans or certain fans about how the Vikings lost, and they were threatening the grandchildren of Mike Zimmer, which I am disappointed to say the least. Now, I am 100% certain these were Vikings fans that did this. There's no other explanation that anyone else would do this to the daughter of Mike Zimmer. Like, no one else would make the excuses. Maybe parlay bettors, but still. I'm 95% certain, 100% certain that Vikings fans made the threats to the daughter of Mike Zimmer, saying that they were going to do bad stuff to the grandchildren of Mike Zimmer. It's really saddening that it had to come to that. I am disappointed in Vikings fans. Like, first of all, you are threatening the family of the head coach. That's a no-no by itself. Second of all, you're threatening 5-month-old children. How dare you, Vikings fans? I can't believe some Vikings fans actually did that. It's one thing to basically say fire this head coach, but to go that extreme, it made me sick. It was almost so bad to be true. I just couldn't believe that. It's like, that's not only dumb, it's cruel. These are 5-month-old children. This is why social media is a toxic place sometimes. And those Vikings fans raised the roof on it tenfold. And that's not even a joke. I'm so disappointed in these Vikings fans that made the threats. So to you Vikings fans who made the threats to Mike Zimmer's daughter's grandchildren, or Mike Zimmer's grandchildren to the daughter of Mike Zimmer, I am not only disappointed in you all, but you have embarrassed Vikings fans all over the world, and you have made yourselves fools all over social media that I am sick to my stomach right now. So, for that reason, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Award recipient number 1.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Matter of fact, no. Those Vikings fans that made the threats deserve it again. Talk to them.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And Brad says that's just disgusting. Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's just sad that someone would do that. It's not just dumb. It's absolutely horrible. Like, I could never do that. And I totally understand the fear that the daughter of Mike Zimmer was going through after the Vikings lost to the Lions. It's like, come on. Like, it's even worse than when Matt Nagy was getting fire Nagy chants at his son's football game. Like, oh man. Come on, people. So, the second Dum Dum of the Award recipient is a little bit more lighthearted. So, it has something to do with the Vikings, but it doesn't really have something to do with the Vikings. So, this happened yesterday when the Pittsburgh Steelers took on the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. And as everyone knows, the Vikings were just pounding the Steelers into the ground. And then the Steelers suddenly caught magic, or they used black magic to suddenly become good at football again. And what was once a 29-0 deficit, it turned out to being 36-28, with the Steelers trying to get one final score to make the game, or take the game into overtime. So what happened was the Steelers were driving. They were driving down the field. They eventually had to get it to 4th down. It was 4th down for the Steelers, 4th and 1. And the logical choice for the Steelers would be run the ball with Najee Harris. That would be too obvious, as Big Ben decided to throw it to Chase Claypool. And Claypool got the first down. And this was under a minute remaining. So what the logical thing to do would be Chase Claypool takes the ball up to the line of scrimmage, and then Big Ben spikes the ball to stop the clock. You want to know what Chase Claypool did? He still had the ball in his hands, and he did his little first down pose after he got the first down, instead of going up to the line of scrimmage. Let me say that again. Chase Claypool, instead of handing the ball and getting it up to the line of scrimmage, decided to celebrate after getting a first down off of a 4th and 1, and he shaved away 7 seconds off the clock. And I think eventually there was like 24 seconds remaining. That right there is super duper dumb. Okay, first of all, why are you even celebrating after a fourth down catch on a 4th and 1? First of all, your team was losing all game. You have zero reason to celebrate. Second of all, you cost your team 7 seconds. Looking back at it, the Steelers could have probably had at least 1 or 2 more shots at the end zone. Like, they had 1 more shot to begin with, but they could have had 3 more at the most. But instead, Chase Claypool decides to be funny, and he decided to do a little first down pose and shave away 7 seconds. Like, one of the Steelers players, God bless his soul, tried to get the ball from Claypool, but then the ball got knocked away, and the ball just tumbled away from the player. So, for Chase Claypool, this is the same Chase Claypool that has been a complete lolcow. Like, earlier in the game against the Vikings, he got a 15-yard penalty because he decided to put his hands on the helmet of one of the Vikings players. And I kind of admit, looking back at it, it looked like he got shoved or someone was talking trash to him, but that's no reason to give your team a 15-yard penalty going backward. So, that was earlier in the game, by the way. And this is the same Chase Claypool who want to have music at his practice. Chase Claypool has been absolutely mind-blowing to me in the worst way. Like, it's getting to the point where I'm just wondering what the heck this guy is doing and if this guy is a double agent for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sorry, but that first down pose did it for me, that Chase Claypool is the Dum Dum of the Week award recipient. And if that loss comes back to haunt the Steelers and then they're left a half a game out of the postseason, they all know who they could possibly point the finger to. I mean, the Steelers shouldn't have been down 29-0 to begin with, but still, Chase Claypool doing that little pose and costing his team 7 seconds does not make matters better. So, Chase Claypool, you are the Dum Dum of the Week recipient number 2.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. Brad says Chase has been getting roasted on Twitter for that. I don't blame him, and I don't feel bad for him because he should have brains. I know he's just a sophomore, but still, he should have brains to put the Steelers in a better position for that. I know he said, I need to be better than that, but still, it's dumb. Like, that's a rookie mistake. Like, it's getting to the point where everyone is starting to compare him to Antonio Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster. Still, it's very, very disappointing and very stupid of him for him to do that. Because what would happen if the Steelers actually convert if they had 1 or 2 more possessions? They probably could have used that to maybe get the ball in the hands of Deontay Johnson or maybe a better look at Pat Freiermuth or something along those lines. Or a check down to Najee Harris. So, sorry, Chase Claypool. I don't have any sympathy for you. But on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get on out of here, because we've got some more shows going on, and I got to get me some lunch in me. You dig? Thank you everyone for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I definitely appreciate you all tuning in. If you are tuning in live, I appreciate you. If you are tuning in on the playback, I appreciate you. If you are tuning in at work, I appreciate you. If you are tuning in at any point, at any time of the day, I appreciate you. Big shout to the chat room that came in and listened. I appreciate you, Brad Buckingham and Bobby Cash of Philly Sports Talk. I really do appreciate you all. I don't know what the stats is going to be like for next week. I actually scheduled a doctor's appointment that day, but we'll see. Don't worry, everything's fine. I'm not going to die. I don't have COVID. And thank you, Brad. He says, good show, T-Rod. Thanks, man. Definitely check out the Northwest Territory Sports Show on Sunday at noon or 11 a.m. Pacific time. Brad does a fantastic job with the show, and I'm sure he's going to be talking about the Oregon Ducks, and he's also going to be talking about some Seattle Seahawks and other stuff. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourselves an amazing weekend. You all, please do take care of one another. Please be a good person. Take care of y'all bodies, just like Marshawn Lynch would say. And I will see you on the other side, most likely Monday for set 4. Have a great weekend, everybody. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!